Yeah, the next spread is Laurie, Silk Spectre, looking frightened or amazed at something. I'm not quite sure what it was there, but anyway, that's you know, again, I have to praise Chip Kidd. I love the way he takes a little sketch that was probably about, you know, an inch high and blows it up to a full page, because it looks so textural and so gestural and everything, and you know, it doesn't even look like something I'd drawn, you know, so maybe that's the reason why I wanted Chip on board, was to make it look extra good. But anyway, that's Laurie. And on the opposite page is one of the covers, and the way that John and I would do those is John would, I'd do an inked drawing, and unlike the interior pages where John would only do a colour guide, he would do a full colour painting on a blue line print, which was a piece of watercolour paper with the line drawing in a light blue, and then the line drawing on an acetate overlay. And he would paint it using airbrush or whatever he was going to do, and then flop the line drawing down on it. So that's why the covers have got that really, you know, juicy, really beautifully painted look that John added to them. Oh, thank you.
Apologies.
You took the top off. And all my presentation. James. Say sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm feeling a shiver now. Let me know what I see. Okay, so that's Laurie and the perfume. Okay, this is a rough for a signature plate. We did some portfolios. It was a French portfolio, which again is very rare. It was only done in a very limited edition, and this was the kind of final pencil drawing that I did prior to tracing it off onto another piece of paper and inking it in. As you can see, the logo runs along behind them. I think what I had in mind here was kind of, was it that Beatles album, Meet the Beatles, where they're all in a very strong side light. So that's how I did that. I think probably the next picture, and it'll be the one after this, is a different version of this. This is the cover for the first issue, and on the left is, I can't remember doing that. I think it was me trying to get an idea of how it would look sort of across the road or across the room or something like that, just to work out how the red and the yellow and the grey should be balanced out, to make it an interesting composition, to make the different areas work well together. And on the right is the original line drawing that I did, that I coloured in quite crudely with crayons, again just to get an idea of what it might look like, and I sent that to John as a guide for him to do his final rendering on. So that's the cover of Watchmen 1. And always it was our idea to have the logo running down the side of it. And the rationale for that was that, you know, traditionally comics have the title on the top, and that's because they used to be put in spinner racks where you'd see the top of the comic or the magazine, so you needed to know the title. But in these days, the sort of direct sale comic books were just getting underway. Direct sale comic book stores were just getting underway, which is what Watchmen was aimed at. And there they tend to rack them along the shelf with just the edge of them showing. So we thought it was a perfect idea, again, to make the cover look different, but also from a practical point of view, that you'd be able to see the Watchmen logo clear in its entirety on a comic book store shelf. Right, yeah, that's that previous image you saw, with the Beatles, or Meet the Beatles, or whatever it was called. And that again is like a kind of a thumbnail blown up with the black areas drawn in. It's a slightly different arrangement of the characters actually, and again, I've got Dr. Manhattan with large areas of black on him, which he didn't subsequently have. Okay, so this is into the meat of the book itself. On the left, I don't know how clearly you can see it, but this was a plan. Some of you may know that in my early training, because I was never trained to draw, but I was trained to make buildings. I was a building surveyor, and so I was quite used to drawing plans and thinking about things in a sort of a three-dimensional structural kind of way. So for a lot of the settings in Watchmen, I actually drew myself little plans so that I know where everything was and how everybody could move around in the space. And this, I think, is actually an aerial view of the restaurant that Dan and Laurie end up in at the end of the first issue where they talk about the comedian being dead. And that again had to be repeated as the camera drew back from it. And also on that page is a partial sort of test inking of the actual first page of the comic book. I don't know how many people in here are artists, you know, but sometimes when you draw something out in pencil and you've got it just the way you want it, you've then got to ink it. And I always find it's quite a good idea to warm up, you know, so I get a bit of tracing paper, which is what that is, put it over the top of the artwork and, you know, ink it in just to get a feel of how I was going to do it and the line weight and everything. So that is, you know, before inking the comic book page, I actually inked that partial figure just there. On the right is an unpublished group shot. Again, I wanted to have the characters absolutely clear in my head and also to be sure that, you know, Alan was happy with the way that I was going to draw them. So I did a couple of these group shots very early on to put all the characters together and, you know, just see what they look like together. And as you can see, at one point when we did this, we thought that Rorschach would have a full body blot suit. And now when we look at it, we think, what were we thinking about? You know, it would be a nightmare to try and draw that. And I don't know if we've got the sketch in this presentation, but I also drew one of him like with a flasher coat, so that he looks like a normal guy and he opens his coat and it's this blob. But when we thought about it, we realised that it was enough to have it on his face. So that's why he's appearing in that, you know, kind of weird way. Also, Dr. Manhattan has still got light and shade falling on him, so this was before we ignited his inner nuclear reactor. The comedian's got his gimp mask on, which is him at his scariest, and I must say Silk Spectre looks rather more buxom than I ended up drawing her. She looks a little bit scary. She's got fishnet stockings on, which were, I think did she have fishnet stockings in the book? I don't know. Anyway, she looks a very scary woman there, and they're standing on a clock, so that motif was in there from the beginning. And actually it's one of the few pieces of art that is signed Moore and Gibbons. So when I finally decided to put this on eBay, it's one to save up for. Because I've got very little artwork left, very, very little artwork. I haven't got any of the original pages from it at all. I sold those all at the time. There is a chapter in the book which talks about that, and you know, I sold whole issues of Watchmen for probably a third of what you pay for a single page now. So along the way, some people have done much better than me out of Watchmen art. All the bits here I still own, so and also because I've kept them for so long, I must admit I'm very reluctant to let them go anyway, so that's why it's nice that we're able to do a book where people could at least see them. The left of this spread is, this was a pin-up page I did for the DC Who's Who, and the same image appeared also on a t-shirt. This is the dedication page, you may be able to read it. I thought it would be appropriate to dedicate the book to Alan and John, seeing as it's got my name all over it. I thought they could probably have a mention as well. And the opposite page is a cover for number 2, the kind of statue in the graveyard in the rain, which again, you know, covers, particularly on Watchmen, where they were quite minimal, had to be as well designed as I could make them. So you can see I've done things in there to make the directions of the lines kind of harmonious, so it sort of strikes a chord all the way through the image, and then I trace that off onto another piece of board or blow it up on a projector onto the final board, and then finish drawing it. And that's the table of contents here, which again you probably can't read.